I once worked at an animal hospital. Here's a true story from then. In the middle of my 16th summer on this earth, I lived in a small town in northeastern New Mexico. I worked as a caretaker at an animal hospital 365 days a year, and during a week-long record-breaking heat wave I experienced, simultaneously, the most disgusting and the most beautiful thing I have ever had a hand in. A seasoned caretaker of 6 months, I was well acclimated to my schedule. Each morning and evening, I would go to the hospital to clean the kennels, feed and water, and administer meds to the ones who needed it. Weekends, I worked alone, so sometime approaching noon, work finished, I was playing with a puppy. I heard my boss truck roll up to the back of the building and park. Unusual for a Saturday, but not unheard of. Instead of coming inside, as I expected, I could hear him opening and closing the various large metal gates we had outside for large animals, readying them for something about to arrive. Even more unusual, but not alarming, a second truck pulled in. I pulled the puppy off me and watched through a window as the driver backed the trailer up to the opening. Mark, my boss, had arranged the gates into a channel to corral the whatever it was into a large room. Jesse, his voice came from the large room. Come here. Stunned by the urgency in his voice, I quickly put my playmate in their kennel, washed my hands, and ran to the other side of the building. I opened the door to the large room. Sanitize the chain in that box and get me the shoulder-length gloves. He pointed to a case against the wall to my left, then turned outside. Inside the case, I found a long chain with metal handles on each side and what looked to be small, serrated nubs on both sides of each link, like dull shark's teeth. As I cleaned the chain, I heard an animal being offloaded into the channel. The room was made of concrete and cinder blocks with a high metal ceiling, and in it, machinery I had never seen used before. The entire floor sloped down toward the center into a large, grated drain. I dried the chain. Mark called from outside. A swollen, awkwardly moving cow slowly trudged into sight, pushed by Mark and a man with a cowboy hat. The cow grunted as she heaved each leg forth, hind legs making short, wide steps. I moved to join the men, but wavered as I noticed two small hooves sticking out from her rear, covered in a viscous substance, half darkened blood, half slime. A waft of aged carrion stung my nostrils as I drew a breath. Do it. I kicked my feet out, moving around to her hind side, hands hastily shooting out to help push. She immediately stopped and readied her body, as if to kick. Mark and the man both stood straight, eyes wide, looking at me. I froze. She stared me down from her periphery, unsure. Slowly, gently, and deliberately, I put my hands on her, not knowing how she would react. Acceptance. We pressed her into the room. The corral led to a machine with 2 vertical rubber bars which Mark clamped tightly around her neck. She grunted and struggled in displeasure at her new tether, but quickly submitted to priority. Her entire body convulsed and quivered from involuntary contractions, trying to force the calf out. The sounds of moans, internal sloshings, grunts, and spurts all mixed in my ears. She stomped her hind left leg on the ground. I backed away, startled, but it was not a warning. She's in pain. The man gave many thanks and excused himself to leave. Mark motioned for the gloves as he washed his arms, uncharacteristically silent. I handed the box to him. What happened? He put the gloves on, muttering something about the smell. I have an idea. I hope I'm wrong. He walked over to the cow's rear. Gloves on, he went in right arm first. His entry broke some sort of seal. A deathly odor saturated the room. Fuck. Mark grimaced and wretched. I had never heard him curse. After a stout breath and more mutterings, he went both arms all the way in. The cow shifted in discomfort and moaned, stomping even harder, straining to squeeze the body out. One could easily imagine blood vessels in her eye, bursting. With every squeeze, spurts of slime went into Mark's mouth. He retched to the side a few times, spit, but didn't stop. She wandered. Off a week ago, didn't find her till today. Spitting punctuated his sentences in odd places. Too late. He felt around a little more. Damn it. I knew it. It's backwards. The head's in the way. How long? The last sentence whispered more to himself than me. The temperature had held steadily above 100 for over a week, some days above 110. He pulled his arms out. I need the chain. One end went in and came back out as the other end shortened. The chain glinted brightly in the light. It seemed to be the only clean thing in the room. With a hand firmly grasping each handle, he began to saw. The sounds I heard, I need an eyes. First flesh, his movements fluid and rapid. Then bone, his grip tightened, his pace slowed and intensified till a small pop. Then flesh again. Out came the chain, and when his arms, his catch, a severed head with milky eyes. Put on some gloves. He discarded the head. We need to pull in unison, giving her some time between or else we won't be able to get it out. I covered my small, shaking hands with oversized gloves. I approached, grabbed a hoof, and inhaled. Ready. Now. We pulled as hard as we could. She moaned in pain. Okay. We both rested. Again. We pulled, this time, less tentatively. She cried out again, stomping. Her expressions infected me. I wanted it to end, but I couldn't, impelled by Mark's determination. The first few times we did this, we were not completely in sync, maybe even a little sloppy, but by the fourth pull, we were both in time. By the ninth time, she had joined us, heaving back and forth, her contractions with our pulls. When we rested, she rested, 3 into 1. Man, boy, and cow versus. I didn't really know, but something. Each tug, each moan, each push, louder than the last, a cadence building towards an increasingly feverish climax. When it finally birthed, the congealed placenta came with it, rancid. Mark had to tell me to stop tugging. She exhaled what seemed to be a deep sigh of relief, and her body drooped in exhaustion. I rubbed her body in consolation and praise and admiration. Mark and I removed our gloves and washed our hands. Take her outside and give her some hay. He removed the clamp from her neck. She needs rest. The short rope around her neck felt meaningless as I grabbed it. She was with me walking back through the channel to the pen. She felt like an old coworker, a best friend, like family. Once in the pen, I dropped the rope to fill her water and walked towards the hay just outside the bars. She walked to the water and drank a little, walked to the back of the pen under the shade, turned and directly faced me. Normally, I would put the bale of hay just inside of the pen near where I get it from. I put it in front of her. She nibbled some hay, lay down, and closed her eyes. As I walked away, I looked over my shoulder to see her breathing deeply, gently. Following her example, I exhaled.